Today on Mega Man Fully Charged, Iceman literally has no chill. Later, it's 3, 2, 1 blast off for another new robot master.
What makes a hero? Someone who fights for unity. Someone who stands for justice. Someone like Mega Man.
Mega Man.
To say the first 2 episodes of Fully Charged left an impression on me is an understatement. Throwing Shade Parts 1 and 2 established a template which I felt could smartly utilize the Mega Man cast to impart useful lessons to youngsters. Much like anthropomorphic animals, the Robot Masters function as shorthands for specific traits and personalities. Mega Man's ability to take on the characteristics of his foes then grants him opportunities to work through those traits himself. After overcoming them, Mega Man learns from the experience and shares his newly gained wisdom with others, including his enemies. It's a setup so simple, it practically writes itself. Despite this, Fully Charged hasn't managed to implement this template as cleanly as it did in those first 2 episodes. Episodes 4 and 5 didn't tie their learning opportunities to their antagonists well, and Episode 6 didn't do enough to confront the fallacy in its antagonist's logic.
Sometimes you have to be bad for the greater good. See? Told you I'm mindful now.
Hey! That makes no sense.
Now in that case, Fireman's folly is self-evident, but that also means the lesson isn't coming from Mega Man learning anything within the episode itself. That's unfortunate, because having Mega Man wrestle with character flaws and difficult ideas and coming out wiser in the end is what makes him relatable, admirable, and ultimately worthy of emulation. So it's with all of this in mind that I can't help but think of Nice on Ice as a slushy mess. After watching Aki give an inspiring speech about unity between humans and robots, Iceman takes his words literally and goes on a nicing spree by freezing humans and robots together. It's an unusual setup that's only foreshadowed by Dr. Light explaining that humans and robots think differently. The distinction between semantics and syntax, however, isn't what this episode is about. Instead, it's about, well, truth be told, I'm not sure what it's about. Mega Man's earlier discussion with Dr. Light doesn't factor into stopping Iceman at all. Mega Man doesn't find some way to speak to him more succinctly or to help him understand why his literal-mindedness is a problem. Instead, it's Suna's advice about finding a pattern which helps Mega Man succeed. That's a nice wink towards video games, but it's only presaging in the episode's beginning is the Motorbots' programmed movement. Nice on Ice's ending confounds even more. After Iceman is defeated, Mega Man declares that while robots and humans have their own quirks, each should be appreciated for who they are. That's quaint, but again, it doesn't meaningfully call back to anything else in the episode. Mega Man didn't stop Iceman through understanding or appreciation, he stopped him through force. That's another thing. Mega Man is strangely aggressive during his confrontation with Iceman. Back in Please Rush Home, I praised him for his measured response to Wave Man's actions. Mega Man sought to understand his foe and tried talking him down before resorting to his buster. He even backed off once he found a way to get Wave Man talking again. Here, Mega Man starts off with his usual humor, but immediately ratchets up to loudly annoyed and makes no attempts to de-escalate the situation. He even puts beating Iceman above saving others, as if he'd suddenly become tainted by Fireman's schematic again. And to top it all off, what the ding-dang doodly does being literal have to do with ice? This episode is just so off, especially considering Mega Man's experiences in previous episodes. At the very least, Iceman's presence keeps me from totally giving Nice on Ice the cold shoulder. A charming mix of youthful confidence and naivety, as well as a sparkling remix of his theme, gives this version of Iceman an undeniable charisma. He's just so darn chipper and earnest. This is perfect for Iceman's characterization here, which is a nobler take on his canonical showiness. He's completely convinced that what he's doing is right, but unlike Hypno Woman, it comes from a place of wanting to be heroic. And honestly, he's pretty dang close considering he only attacks Mega Man in response to being attacked. My heart actually broke a little each time Iceman lost his temper. Stop being so mean to him, Mega Man. All he wants to do is bring humans and robots together in harmonious harmony.
Hey! Toddlers and toaster bots are off limits!
Mega Man cools his jets in the next episode, but a new Robot Master fires up her own. Hard Times in Silicon City debuts Blasto Woman, a surly thief who don't take no guff from no one.
Yes, ma'am?
My mother was called ma'am. I'm Blasto Woman. Now, which of these is worth the biggest bucks?
She's a fun character who reminds me of other tough dames such as Darkwing Duck's Ammonia Pine.
If I can't use you as a hostage, then you're just one more little stain waiting to be wiped out.
And Batman's Mighty Mom.
Call me Mighty Mom!
Ain't she sweet? My very own happy homemaker.
But I don't do windows!
I know Blasto Woman is a bit of a stereotype, but at least it's one I haven't seen in a while. I can't say the same for Peter Punkowski, who also debuts in this episode. I never cared for the annoying nerd stereotype, even when it was at the height of its popularity. And Peter isn't just a nerd, he's a gross nerd who can't be bothered to blow his nose. I'll admit that I grew up with and even enjoyed gross-out humor as a youngster, but Peter is a snot string too far for me. His repellent qualities, however, do serve a purpose. At first blush, Hard Times in Silicon City only seems to be about the importance of studying history. While Aki does start the episode calling war artifacts junk and ends it learning that they represent past mistakes, there's more going on here. Thanks to Peter's knowledge, Mega Man is able to quickly protect the most valuable artifacts from Blasto Woman. Because of this, he gains an appreciation of the wisdom of others, regardless of how annoying, or gross, or rude they may be. This lesson is easily more valuable than just, history is important. Blasto Woman also fits into the themes of knowledge and a willingness to learn by playing foil to Peter. Like the rockets on her back, she prefers to plow straight ahead, or as she puts it,
Much more of a smash and grab sort of gal.
she dislikes disguises and puns, which suggests that she doesn't care for dressing up truth or even comedy. For Blasto Woman, knowledge is only valuable as a means to an end. This is further evidenced by her forcing Peter to tell her what artifacts are worth stealing. Though she did do some research beforehand, she mostly sought information about the artifact shortly before needing it. Peter, however, has accumulated knowledge over time out of both the love of learning itself and the insight study can provide. Hard Times in Silicon City also gets a lot of mileage out of its museum setting. Firstly, it provides a reason to talk about the Hard Age, the war era mentioned back in the first episode. Secondly, it makes for a funny fight between Mega Man and Blasto Woman. While the former seeks to minimize collateral damage, the latter just wants to protect the resale value of the exhibits. Finally, a museum makes a natural home for several Mega Man Easter eggs. Some of the more prominent ones include Mega Man X's box art,
What am I fighting for?
Mega Man 2's North American box art, and of course, unless Aki is a Reploid, none of these images make sense within the context of the show. I'm willing to forgive this though, because it demonstrates the creators indeed respect Mega Man's legacy. This also comes through in Iceman's design. Despite several embellishments, the basic silhouette is unchanged. Instead of a parka's hood, this Iceman's face is framed by earmuffs and a magnificent coif, though the intent is lost a little thanks to his pale face blending in with his hair. At least his cute sock cap manages to break up the sea of white in some shots. Speaking of shots, Iceman's Ice Slasher is the most accurate weapon depiction the series has seen so far. Though sometimes hard to make out in motion, these are unmistakably three-dimensional Ice Slasher projectiles. Unlike his classic counterpart, this Iceman uses blasters instead of his breath. This choice was likely made for the sake of the toy line, which features removable weapons for Mega Man to equip. As I mentioned earlier, Iceman's personality is a believable extension of his canon. The Robot Master Field Guy claims that he can be a bit of a show-off. He also does not take well to losing. Blasto Woman, on the other hand, doesn't really recall anything from Mega Man's past. Whereas previous newcomer Hypno Woman vaguely reminded me of Battle Network, I can't see Blasto Woman's design as analogous to anything in the franchise. This isn't to say, however, that it's bad. In fact, her design is just as practical as she is. Between her powerful rockets, ample storage, and stocky frame, Blasto Woman is clearly meant to deliver heavy cargo. Her yellow paint scheme supports this, as it makes her as visible as, and as worthy of caution as, a construction vehicle. She also appears to have reflective stripes similar to those on safety vests. All of this combines to lend her the working-class air that makes her feel down to earth. Oh, there is one thing that reminds me of the games. During Blasto Woman's fight with Mega Man, she's twice brought down by Ice Slasher. I'm not sure if it was intentional, but this weapon interaction evokes the weakness of another flying robot master, Tengu Man. He could be frozen to the ground by Ice Wave in Mega Man 8. This pair of episodes surprised me for both better and worse. Nice on Ice majorly slipped up by undoing some of Aki's character development. Most disappointing, it fails to offer a solid moral through line despite past successes. If not for Iceman's shimmering personality, the episode would have been a flurry of frustration. By contrast, Hard Times in Silicon City somehow accomplishes a great deal with old stereotypes and a small indoor setting. It launched Blasto Woman without a hitch, and corrected Aki's heroic trajectory. Here's to hoping that Fully Charged stays on target. Next time on Mega Man Fully Charged, Aki suspects all that glitters isn't gold. And
「